In the busy streets of Lagos, there lived a man called Chukwuemeka, a billionaire whose name alone could open any door in Nigeria. He was tall, handsome, and dressed in suits so expensive that one button could feed a family for a year. But Chuka had a flaw. He was arrogant, playful, and loved making ridiculous bets with his equally wealthy friends. One Friday night, inside the private VIP section of a high-class lounge in Victoria Island, Chuka's friends were teasing him. "Chuka, you think money can get you anything, but I bet there are women you will never marry," his friend Uche laughed. "Name her and I will," Chuka boasted, sipping his expensive wine. Uche smirked. "Fine. I dare you to marry the poorest, most overweight woman you can find in Lagos and stay married for a whole year. If you do it, I'll give you my Rolls Royce and that land in Banana Island." The whole table burst into laughter, but Chuka leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "Deal." 2 weeks later, fate played its card. While driving through Ajigunle, Chuka's car was forced to stop when a group of children ran across the road. On the roadside, he saw her, Ngozi, a big, round woman with cheeks as full as ripe mangoes, selling puff-puff from a rusty iron tray. Her faded wrapper was tied carelessly. Her slippers were worn out, and sweat dripped down her face. She was busy shouting at some boys trying to steal from her tray. Chuka's driver chuckled. "Oga, see your future wife, oh." Chuka smirked. Perfect. That evening, he strolled up to Ngozi's puff-puff stand in an expensive white shirt and gold wristwatch that could pay her rent for 10 years. "Good evening, beautiful," he said smoothly. Ngozi eyed him from head to toe, unimpressed. "By puff-puff or shift, a beg. My customers day wait." For the first time in years, Chuka felt challenged. She wasn't moved by his looks or wealth, and that made her perfect for the bet. Within weeks, Chuka started visiting her every day, buying all her puff-puff just so she could close early. People in Ajigunle began to gossip. What was a billionaire doing with a poor, fat puff-puff seller? 3 months later, to the shock of the entire city, Chukwuemeka married Ngozi in a small, awkward ceremony. The tabloids went crazy. Billionaire weds puff-puff seller. Love or madness? Chuka's shocking marriage. Little did anyone know, it was all just a bet. But from the first night after the wedding, Chuka began to realize something. Ngozi was no fool. She had a sharp tongue, a sense of humor that could make even the coldest heart laugh, and a strange way of making him comfortable. And as days turned into weeks, the bet started turning into something Chuka wasn't prepared for. The first week of marriage, Chuka thought life would be easy. He had given Ngozi a luxury penthouse and a koi, new clothes, and a driver. In his mind, she would be so overwhelmed by her sudden upgrade that she'd worship the ground he walked on. But Ngozi was different. On the second morning, Chuka found her in the kitchen, not waiting for the chef, but frying akra herself. The entire penthouse smelled like oil and onions. "Ngozi, why are you cooking?" "We have chefs." Chuka frowned. "Chef? My akra sweet past anything that chef fit cook." "Eat and stop forming, Oga Billionaire," she replied, sliding him a plate with a smile that dared him to refuse. To his own shock, Chuka took a bite and ended up finishing the whole plate. When they went to public events, people whispered and stared. Social media was flooded with cruel comments. "Billionaire's wife or bag of rice?" "She's not even trying to lose weight." Chuka expected Ngozi to hide in shame, but she did the opposite. At a charity gala, a slim socialite sneered at her, saying, "My dear, with your size, you must find it hard to fit into designer dresses." Ngozi smiled sweetly and replied, "Not at all. In fact, I order extra fabric, more space for my enjoyment. At least my husband likes me full, not half empty." The hall erupted in laughter, and Chuka actually felt proud. One night, after another public outing where Ngozi had handled herself with grace, Chuka sat alone in his study thinking. This was supposed to be a joke, a bet, but he was starting to look forward to her company, to the way she laughed from her belly, how she spoke to everyone, from cleaners to CEOs, like they mattered. Still, he told himself, don't get carried away. This is business, a game. But then came the day that Ngozi proved she was more than just a puff-puff seller. A powerful investor tried to humiliate Chuka in a meeting by bringing up the shame of his wife's background. Before Chuka could respond, Ngozi calmly leaned forward and said, "Oga, the same puff money you looked down on paid my siblings' school fees, fed my family, and kept me debt-free. Can you say the same about your fancy business that needs bailout every 6 months?" The entire room went silent. The investor's face turned red, and Chuka knew right there that the game had changed. By the 6th month of their marriage, Chuka had a problem his billionaire friends would never believe. He was falling for Ngozi. It didn't happen in one dramatic moment. It was little things. The way she greeted the security guards by name every morning. How she would insist they stop the convoy to buy roasted corn by the roadside. The way she laughed so hard at his serious business stories, she'd have to hold her stomach. And then there was a night she nursed him through a fever. He had been shivering under silk sheets, too weak to even lift his head. Ngozi sat by his side, placing a cool towel on his forehead, whispering prayers in Igbo, and feeding him spoonfuls of pepper soup she made herself. Chuka realized no supermodel, no rich heiress, had ever cared for him like that. But just when his heart was melting, the bet deadline loomed closer. At exactly 1 year, Uche would call and confirm whether he had kept his end of the bargain, and Chuka would win the Rolls-Royce in Banana Island land. One Saturday morning, Uche visited unannounced. They sat in Chuka's study, drinking whiskey. "So, my guy, you're really going through with it? The year is almost up." Uche smirked. "Yes, of course," Chuka replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Uche laughed. "Omo, you don't even have to pretend to love her anymore. After next month, you can dump her and collect your winnings." Those words hit Chuka like a punch. Dump her? After all the joy she had brought into his life? Later that night, Chuka sat on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Ngozi came out with a tray, suya, palm wine, and her big, warm smile. "Oga Billionaire, you day think too much. Eat something before you grow old." As she sat beside him, humming an old high life tune, Chuka knew he was in trouble because he was no longer thinking about the bet. He was thinking about what life would be like without her. The closer it got to the 1-year mark, the more Chuka's mind became a battlefield. On one side, there was the bet, his pride, his friends' respect, and the prize waiting for him. On the other side, there was Ngozi, the woman who had somehow turned his penthouse into a home. But while Chuka wrestled with his feelings, Uche had other plans. Uche had always been jealous of Chuka's success. The bet had been his way of embarrassing Chuka in front of their elite circle. But instead of humiliation, Chuka was thriving. And to Uche's disgust, the public had started admiring Ngozi for her charm and confidence. So Uche decided to destroy it all. One afternoon, Uche visited Ngozi in the guise of being a concerned friend. "Ngozi, I like you," he started, sipping the zobo she served him. "But do you know why Chuka married you?" Ngozi raised an eyebrow. "Because he asked and I said yes." Uche leaned in, his voice low. "It was a bet, a silly game. He planned to dump you after a year and collect his prize, a Rolls-Royce in Banana Island land." Ngozi stared at him, her face unreadable. "Are you sure you're not the one playing a silly game, Mr. Uche?" Uche smirked. "Ask him yourself. Let's see if he can look you in the eye and deny it." That evening, Ngozi cooked Chuka's favorite, jollof rice with grilled chicken, but her laughter was gone. She served the food quietly and went to bed early. Chuka noticed. "Ngozi, are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied, turning away. But inside, her heart was pounding. She didn't know whether to confront him immediately or wait for him to confess on his own. Meanwhile, Uche wasn't done. He started leaking small hints to gossip blogs, whispering about a shocking truth behind the billionaire's marriage. And soon, the whispers began to spread. It started with one headline on a popular Lagos gossip blog. Inside source, billionaire's marriage to fat puff seller was a bet. By noon, the story was everywhere: radio, TV, Instagram, even WhatsApp family groups. Ngozi sat in the living room, her phone buzzing endlessly with messages. Her sisters were calling, Friends were texting. Old neighbors from Ajagunal were sending screenshots. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there, silent, when Chuka returned from a meeting. He walked into an atmosphere so heavy, it felt like the air itself was judging him. "Ngozi, I can explain," he began. She stood up slowly, her eyes fixed on him. "Don't explain. Just answer one thing. Was it true?" Chuka swallowed hard. "At first, yes. But it's not like that anymore." Ngozi laughed, but there was no joy in it. "At first? So the man I cooked for, laughed with, cared for was just acting?" "Ngozi, please, I swear I didn't plan to fall for you. But I did. Everything now is real." Her voice cracked as she replied, "I may not be rich, but I'm not cheap enough to be someone's prize." She picked up her small handbag, the same one she had before marrying him, and walked out. The news spread faster than Harmattan fire. Ngozi leaves billionaire husband after bet scandal. Chuka's friends laughed behind his back. Business partners questioned his judgment. The media hounded him for statements. But none of that mattered to him. The only thing he wanted was Ngozi back. And that's when Chuka decided he was going to fight for her, not with money, not with gifts, but with something he'd never given anyone before: humility. For 3 days, Chuka couldn't eat or sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ngozi's face the moment she walked out, hurt, proud, and unshaken. Finally, he told his driver, "Take me to Ajagunal." The driver blinked. "Oga, you sure? You know they even like pass that side." "I'm not passing. I'm staying until she listens to me." When Chuka arrived at Ngozi's old street, the place was buzzing. Word spread like wildfire. "Billionaire day for our area." "Nah, for Fat Puff Puff seller matter." Children chased after him. Women peeped from doorways. Men gathered in small groups to watch the drama unfold. Ngozi's mother came out first, tying her faded wrapper tighter. "Ah, Mr. Big Man, what do you want here?" "Mama, I came to see Ngozi." She crossed her arms. "You mean the daughter you turned into a public laughingstock? She doesn't need you." Chuka didn't argue. He walked straight to the small open space where Ngozi now sold Puff Puff again, the same rusty tray, the same street corner. When she saw him, her hands froze over the hot oil. The crowd went silent. "Ngozi," he began, "I came here without my suits, without my cars, without my pride, because I need you to know something." She turned away. "Chuka, go home." "No, I won't. Not until you hear me. Yes, I married you for a bet. But somewhere between the puff puff, the palm wine, and your laughter, I realized you were the best thing in my life. And I ruined it." The crowd murmured. Some women were already nodding in approval. But Ngozi wasn't moved. At least not yet. "If you truly mean what you're saying, you'll prove it. And not with money." "Tell me how," Chuka said instantly. She looked him straight in the eye. "Tomorrow, you'll sell Puff Puff here with me. From morning till night. No driver, no bodyguards, no soft billionaire hands. If you can stand beside me in this heat and still call me your wife, maybe I'll believe you." The crowd roared with excitement. And Chuka agreed. By 7 a.m., Ajagunal was already buzzing. Word had spread through the entire neighborhood. Today, Billionaire goes sell Puff Puff. Chuka arrived wearing a plain t-shirt, faded jeans, and bathroom slippers. No designer watch, no gold chain, just a man with nervous determination. Ngozi was already at the stand, tying her wrapper firmly. She handed him a bowl of flour mixture. "Since you say you love me, let's see how your love tastes in hot oil." The first few minutes were a disaster. Chuka's Puff Puff came out looking like UFOs, burnt on one side, raw in the middle. Children laughed. A group of boys shouted, "Oga, this one not Puff Puff or a table tennis ball?" Sweat dripped down his face, but Chuka kept going. He shouted prices, smiled at customers, and even chased away a street dog trying to steal a piece. By afternoon, something strange happened. He started getting better. His Puff Puff was rounder, softer, and actually selling fast. Some people were buying just to take pictures with him. But the real test came when a group of rich men in flashy cars stopped by. They were his fellow billionaires, including Uche. Uche smirked. loud enough for the whole street to hear. Aha, Chuka, so this is your life now? From Banana Island to frying puff puff in gutter water. The crowd went quiet. All eyes turned to Chuka. He wiped his hands on a towel, looked Uche in the eye, and said, "Yes, and I've never been prouder, because I'm standing next to the only woman who makes my life worth anything." Ngozi's hand froze on the tray. The street erupted in cheers. That evening, after they packed up, Chuka's voice was low and tired. "Ngozi, I don't care about the bet, the prize, or what anyone says. I just want you back." She studied him for a long moment, then finally smiled. "We'll see, Oga Puff Puff. We'll see." Uche left Ajigunal that day with sour taste in his mouth. In his mind, Chuka was supposed to be humiliated. Yet the crowd had cheered him, and Ngozi had almost smiled. So Uche decided to end things for good. If the public humiliation didn't work, a scandal would. 2 days later, while Chuka was in a meeting, Uche visited Ngozi's stand again. This time, he brought a photographer. He bought Puff Puff joke with her, and at one point leaned in close, whispering something. The photographer clicked rapidly. "Ngozi," Uche said slyly, "one day you'll realize I'm better for you than a man who married you as a game." She rolled her eyes and turned away, but the camera had already caught the moment in a way that looked intimate. By evening, the pictures were everywhere. Billionaire's wife in Secret Street romance. Is Ngozi moving on with husband's friend? Social media exploded. Some mocked Chuka. Others called Ngozi a street cheat. When Chuka saw the headlines, his chest tightened. Not because he believed it, but because he knew the damage Uche was capable of causing. That night, he drove straight to Ajigunal. Ngozi met him outside, her face tight. "So now it's me in the gossip blogs? First you, now me?" "Ngozi, I don't believe a word of it," Chuka said firmly. "But Uche wants us to fight. He wants to win. If we let this break us, he wins." She hesitated, studying him. For the first time since the truth came out, she saw no arrogance in his eyes, only a man desperate not to lose her again. But before they could talk more, a shout came from the end of the street. Uche had just arrived, grinning like a man who thought he'd already won. To be continued. Watch out for part 2. For more stories like this, click on the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell.